Okay, welcome. Thank you all so much for coming. I think it's about time that we would get started for this evening. It's great to see so many people here. Thank you for being so engaged. My name is Kathy Navakis, and I will be your moderator this evening. Our timekeeper is Diana, and she's right up front here. We also have an interpreter this evening, and this is Angela, so welcome, Angela. We'd like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather and the many Indigenous people of this region. The three long-standing Indigenous groups of this region are the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, and Lenape. I'd also like to recognize the three First Nations communities neighboring the City of London: Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and the Munsee Delaware Nation. We recognize that we, as the Urban League and members of the community, have a role to play in relationship building and reconciliation, and that reconciliation has to be about more than talk. It has to be based on action. Miigwech. Please try to participate in some of the amazing experiences that are happening tomorrow on this National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. The Urban League of London is hosting all candidates' meetings with partner organizations from across London, and they include ANOVA, Climate Action London, Inclusive Economy London and Region, London Cycle Link, London Environmental Network, London Intercommunity Health Centre, the London School of Racialized Leaders, London Middlesex Local Immigration Partnership, Pillar Nonprofit Network, and Young London. We are hosting 14 meetings throughout London before the municipal election scheduled for October 24th. A volunteer committee was struck in January, and they have been meeting to organize these meetings as well as coordinate the questions. Candidates, please be sure to speak clearly when you get your turn. I skipped a page, my fault. We request that everyone here today be respectful to all the candidates and to the fellow audience members. We want to encourage those of you in our audience who use social media to tag the Urban League in their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, either at Urban League of London or at ULLDN, respectively, and or use the hashtag LondonLDNVotes. We would like to thank East Carling School for their support in providing this meeting space. If we need to leave, the exit is just out the door to your right, and there are facilities just across the hall outside here. We want to thank the London Community Foundation for sponsoring these meetings and remind everyone of their 2021 release of the Vital Signs Report, Be the Change. The report is available at bethechangelondon.ca. And thank you to Rogers and their supporters for filming the event for broadcast. So the ground rules that we're going to follow for this evening. We've drawn the candidates' names to determine the speaking order. That's already been done. Each candidate will have a 2-minute opening introduction that they will be able to do. Then we are going to have 2 questions drawn from the Urban League questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to that question. And then we are going to go to the audience questions. When we go to audience questions, each candidate has 1 minute to respond to those questions. They don't have to use the full time. That is up to them. Diana, who is going to be in the front, this is how the timekeeping works. She's 3 cards. One is a green card, a yellow, and a red card. When your time begins, the green card will be held up. At the 30-second point from the end of time, the yellow card is held up. The red card will then be held up when you must immediately stop your answer. As moderator, my job is to make sure that the night moves along and everyone is treated fairly. All candidates were provided with the questions in advance of the meetings to afford them the opportunity to prepare responses. And this applies only to the Urban League organized questions. Before we begin, I'd like to point out the candidates in the room who are running as school board trustees. We have Laura Gonzalez, Marianne Larson, and Leroy Osborne. Anybody else that came in that I might have missed? I'm sorry, sir, your name?
Paul Rake.
And Paul Rake is back there too. There'll be opportunities to talk to them after. Okay, we have drawn our order, and tonight the first speaker will be Colleen Murphy.
Thank you so much for moderating tonight, Kathy, and to the Urban League and to all of the different organizations that have come together to make sure that our democracy happens, because this is important. My name is Colleen Murphy. I've spent the last 20 years living and working and supporting this community. I am passionate about this community, and I want an opportunity to represent you and take some of that passion to those tables to make sure that we're being taken care of. For the last 6 years, I've worked in a Housing First program, and I see that that is something that London is in desperate need of. We need some action on housing with a 1% vacancy rate. That is something that is incredibly important. I also bring something different to the table than we usually see in politics. So myself and my husband are musicians, so I think we can bring some creativity to this community. London has announced that we are a UNESCO City of Music. I want to see us actually thrive on that, because when we do those things, we can support local businesses, we can make our community come back together. So we've seen some distance after COVID, and I think music and arts really do bring us together. And I believe in our small businesses. So I want to make sure that we are supporting those businesses that support our Little League teams that are part of this community. I'm very passionate about this community. I've been at the fighting for it for years, and now I'm looking for that opportunity to take those next steps. So thank you for your time, and most of all, October 24th, make sure you're voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Our next speaker is Matt Nicolaitis.
Thank you to the Urban League. My name is Matt Nicolaitis, and I'm running to be your full-time City Councillor here in Ward 4. I'm running because I see a London where good, working people are falling behind. I see a London where housing has become unaffordable, where hard-working people are competing with millionaires and billionaires just to have a home. I see a London where people are being illegally evicted, where those on fixed incomes are skipping meals, and where homelessness and poverty rates continue to increase. I live in this London. I rent in this London. I'm fighting for my neighbours, for the people of Ward 4. There are steps we can take in City Hall to fix these problems. There are solutions. The province is not doing its share of the work. Fine. We know they're not looking out for us. So this must compel us to be innovative. We must push the province to act. And I will. I have the drive, the experience, and the strong desire to make this city better. I'm a hard worker. I'm a blue-collar, Southwestern Ontario guy. I'm not concerned with platitudes and empty promises. We've had far too much of that. We need action. We need solutions. I'm prepared to bring my working-class outrage to politics, and I'm prepared to do the hard work those before me have failed to do. I hope to earn your support and your vote on October 24th.
Thank you. Next, we have Susan Stevenson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Stevenson. I'm a wife, mother, and a businesswoman. I've been a professional accountant for 25 years, and I worked in banking and corporate accounting before running my own public accounting practice in London for a little over a decade. I sold the practice to continue my leadership training and to help train others to be the leaders that this world needs. That company's mission statement is to train bold, ethical leaders who create a world where no one's left out. I'm running for City Council because we deserve quality leadership at the helm of this billion-dollar corporation that we call home, which is the City of London. We need to restore pride and safety in our core areas. Our small businesses and nearby communities have been overwhelmed with vandalism and theft, and our homeless population is increasing. All Londoners lose if our core areas fail, and if we don't help our vulnerable populations find a way out of their dire situation. We need urgent, pragmatic action from our city leaders. What we have been doing is clearly not working, and as desperate as the situation is, we can see and feel the potential for greatness. I have the skills and leadership experience to begin to address these complex issues and to not only represent the residents of Ward 4, but to enroll the other councillors in what is needed so that the much needed changes are approved. I commit to full time and will strive to be the best city councillor that Ward 4 has ever had. I care a lot. As voters, you get to choose the best person to lead us through what looks to be a very difficult and challenging economic and financial time. I believe I am the most qualified. I believe it's going to be very challenging, and I still want to take it on. I want to serve. I want to help, and that is why I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you. And Jared Fisher?
Thank you, Urban League of London, for putting this all together, and to all the volunteers who made this happen. This is a great opportunity and vital for our functioning democracy, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it. Obviously, I'm wearing a mask. I have a vulnerable family member living at home, so I will be wearing this for the entire meeting. If anyone has any trouble hearing me or understanding me, please let me or the moderator know. On to my actual opening statement. My name is Jared Fisher. I live in the ward with my wife, Jessica, and my 9-month-old son, Bruce. We love our ward because of the great community spirit that it exudes. Anyone who has lived in the area or spent time in the area can attest to this. That said, we know that our ward has many serious issues. The housing crisis is putting housing affordability out of reach for many residents. Our transit network is completely strained to the point of breaking, and we have homeless neighbors living on the streets and struggling to get through the day. I have a plan to put in action to help solve these issues, but I also have a plan to do so much more than just fixing issues. I want to make a London that'll be vibrant, that'll be prosperous, and that'll be enjoyable and attractive to future generations, including my own children and the young adults that are graduating from Western and Fanshawe that we want to retain to have a prosperous economy here in London. I am looking to create multiple 15-minute communities, walkable communities, with local green spaces, small businesses, shops, cafes, the heart of an enjoyable city, the place that people spend lots of money to visit on their tourist destinations. I look forward to going through more details about how I plan to make this happen during the rest of my time here tonight. And if I do miss anything and you have any further questions, please reach out to me some other time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to get an audience member to draw the first question. And for the speaking order, we're going to start with Matt, and then we will go to Susan, and then Jared, and then Colleen. Here's the question. Many in our community feel they don't belong, especially newcomers, marginalized groups, and Indigenous communities. What do you believe needs to be done to ensure everyone feels that they belong? And as I said, Matt, we'll start with you, and you have 2 minutes.
Sure. So, I mean, myself, I'm a second-generation Canadian. All 4 of my grandparents are immigrants. When my daddo tried starting up a business in Bracebridge, Ontario, he faced a great deal of ethnophobia because that was a time when Macedonians were simply not welcomed in many parts of Canada and Ontario. Even I faced a degree of it when I grew up in the 90s. So I come at it from the lens of, you know, I have some degree of experience with it, obviously not the same that others have, but it's important to understand that first and foremost, we're united in the sense that everyone around us is of the same sort of class. There are people that will try and divide us and will try and pit us against one another. They say, you don't have something, it's because that other person took it. And a lot of people believe that. A lot of people believe this internet conspiracy rhetoric that, you know, someone else is taking from them and therefore they need to have this sort of aggression against other people that they don't understand to resolve that. So, I mean, when it comes to making the world better for, making the city better for people that, feel that they don't belong, I mean, quite simply, it's a matter of creating understanding, creating bonds between people to understand that, you know, we're really not so different. Our cultures might be different. I mean, understanding those cultures can be quite interesting. I mean, you know, and for me personally, I reflect on a time when I was in college and I couldn't afford food, and the local Gurdwara, the Sikh temple, actually gave me a meal because a friend of mine was from that community. Yeah, I mean, better understanding, and when everyone has fair economic opportunities, when everyone's doing okay, we can start fighting some of the hatred that exists in the city.
Okay, thank you. Next, Susan.
I think a sense of belonging starts with the communities and the neighborhoods, and letting people feel welcomed and to be part of the area in which they live. And I got a chance to experience that this summer at the Kipps Lane Community Association at Blake Park. I got to meet community association members there that have been part of that community for 20, 30 years. Their kids are up and grown, but they are still there putting on egg hunts and hot dog barbecues in the summer for the local community, which isn't even their children. It's the community children. And in the high rises there, we have a lot of refugees, a lot of people who've immigrated here. And to see them all enjoying that park and coming together in a summer to celebrate together, right? To be part of the community, to enjoy the food, to enjoy the services. And in talking to those community association members, I was really inspired by the fact that the community themselves, created that amazing park. They were the ones who fundraised. They filled out the grant applications. They created it. And they said that that park is used day and night, because the refugees are living in the apartment buildings and they're down there enjoying it all of the time, 24 hours a day. There's people on the basketball courts. They enjoy the splash pads in the summer and just that beautiful green space. But for that community association, none of that would exist. And so kudos to them and to some of the other community associations that do really powerful work in our neighborhoods. And I think it's that welcoming, those the giving of the communities to the newcomers, and to have the events and the organization it takes a lot of work to put on those events. And to see the joy in the kids' faces and in the parents' faces that get to come and enjoy that, I think is one of the best things that we can do as a city to help people feel a sense of belonging. Also, things that we offer at the libraries, the programs.
Thank you. Jared?
Thank you. The question is about belonging, and the opposite of belonging is isolation. And I see that coming from two forms. My wife is actually an immigrant, so I can get a front row seat to this. And it can be the isolation from your original culture that you've left, and the isolation from the new culture that you don't yet feel a part of. And I think we have to approach it from both sides. The first side is one where we have to foster and create opportunities for these immigrant communities and other cultures that are not more broadly familiar to create their own communities, to create their own safe places where they feel comfortable and where they can relate. But we also have to help them relate with the wider community of Canadians and encourage them to have, I would say, more festivals and more gatherings where we can share culture. I truly do believe that diversity is our strength. We need to interact and educate each other with the various cultures that make up our great city and our great country. This will be done through organizations that we already have, such as the Cross-Cultural Learning Center, but also through new festivals, again, where people love to have the opportunity to learn other cultures, to learn about other music, more art, and to just experience new things. And I believe truly that the more we interact with other cultures, the more we get to know our neighbors, the more we'll be able to combat hate, and the more we'll be able to combat isolation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Colleen?
Yeah, so I think when we're talking about belonging, we need to look at what is the city able to do. So Susan mentioned those parks and those, so I'm thinking of those third places. So we have work and we have home, but where we put that community is in those third places. It's in our small businesses, it's in our parks, it's in our festivals. So one of the ways we can do that is when we're looking at our Arts Council, are we having a wide diversity of events that focus with more than one genre, so that's bringing people together that might not usually be together. It's investing in our libraries, because that is one place where people can go and be together. London has a neighborhood decision-making process, and I love that idea, but it involves you having to already have a community association. And when we look at some of our most marginalized, they may not have that. So any of those good neighborhood ideas that we're putting forward saying it's good for this neighborhood, we should be looking at some of our underfunded, under-focused on neighborhoods and providing that same opportunity there. So if we're saying there's a good place in Hyde Park to have a bench and a place for kids to get together and have a community, there's a good place in Carling Heights to put a bench and make sure that those people have that chance to get together. And it is speaking out and supporting people and newcomers and making everyone feel welcome. And part of that, again, is making people feel that they can get together in those third spaces. So I think the city has a definite role to play in the way it assigns its budget, in the way we produce those parks, having things like that, bringing together more community gardens, because again, having that opportunity to meet somebody else, share their culture. I've heard from many people that at those places they've met somebody who's really good at that gardening, and they've fostered those connections that haven't usually been there, and met people that aren't in their usual line of work or play. So again, those third spaces are really important.
Thank you. Okay, and for this question, we're going to start with Susan, and then we'll go to Jared, and then Colleen, and then Matt. The question is about housing. What would you do to improve access and affordability of housing and encourage developers to participate and contribute to a solution? Susan?
Thank you. I love this question, because London is, as we know, the fastest growing city in Ontario. Whether we like it or not, we're growing. And I think what we get to do is embrace that and create something really exciting. And we get to get the developers excited about legacy projects, about what's possible for this city. Like Jared mentioned, the 15-minute neighborhoods, things that are really going to excite people. And the London Home Builders Association and the London Development Institute they released in June of 2022 a plan called London, A Place to Call Home. And it's an extensive document that outlines all of the things that they recommend that will help us to build something really great in London, so that we can speed up the processes, the planning process. Basically, where can the city get out of the way? Where are we holding up what's possible? And what can we do to come alongside and help to create a really great, we've got the London plan, and we've got people who, we've got lots of opportunity. And so we don't want to, I talked to a couple of smaller developers when I was out canvassing, and we're at risk of losing good developers, good ideas, entrepreneurs who could help us solve this housing affordability. Because of the slowdowns at City Hall, because of we're not making it fun, we're making it difficult, we're making it hard, and the good ones are going to the districts that welcome them, that are an exciting place to work. And we have an opportunity to really deal with this crisis that we have. We have a lot of people that don't have homes. We have a low availability for rental space, and we've got we need to create supply in both the rental market and in the housing. I've also talked to people when we go door to door. There's young people that feel like, in a sense, they were playing a game of musical chairs, and the ones that have houses have them.
Thank you. Okay, now we go to Jared.
Thank you. The housing crisis is my #1 concern on my platform. We are in the midst of a housing crisis, as I said. Affordability is at all-time lows. London, Ontario actually has the lowest home ownership of any major city in Ontario. And just recently, rental affordability in certain areas has become less affordable than parts of the GTA. So London has not escaped this by any measure. We need to develop a lot more housing units. It's the only long-term solution to the housing problem. Sorry. So when it comes to, I'm going to switch text here, sorry. For homelessness, that's another separate issue, but very related. Obviously, people are fed into homeless situations because of the rising inequality and housing affordability. We need different types of shelters. We need more increased shelters. We need all the wraparound housing to support them. And we need to spread it through the city and encourage transitional and supportive housing so that we can get people back into the housing market. As I was saying earlier, before I completely lost my train of thought, sorry, our current plan for the city is called the London Plan. It was just recently approved, and it's a great step forward. It's planning to do more infill, more building inwards and upwards, and that's great. That's all part of my platform, but it's not going nearly far enough. It's planning for about 20,000 units over the next decade, and population projections say that we need upwards of 40,000 new units just to keep track of where we are now. And in order to actually bring affordability back in track, we're going to have to build more than just the population projections. We need to build well over 50, 60, even 70,000 units. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen?
Yeah, I could probably talk about housing for hours. It is something that I'm passionate about, and it's something that I've worked, as I was saying, for the last 6 years in. So we need housing across the board with a 1% vacancy rate. We know that people are struggling to find homes. We know that people are struggling to get into the housing market. So we need to start following that London plan of building up and not out. We need to be looking at how can we as a city support some of that building. So we do see some slowdowns in permits getting passed. So we need to look at investing in those workers to make sure that when people are trying to build those homes, we're not having those delays. But we also need to invest as a city in housing, because the developers are in the business of developing, and we as a city need to be in the business of taking care of each other. So we need some rent gear to income housing for everyone. We need to look at having housing with full wraparound supports. And I will disagree with Jared here. We don't need more shelter places. None of us would think that if you lost your housing tomorrow and you moved into bed and somebody was 3 inches away from you, that was housing. We need to be investing in permanent solutions so people can start being part of the community, contributing. And again, I think it's so important. We've got a great project that is opening up. There are people moving into it in Old East Village in the next month at Inwell, which has shown us what we can do. We need to follow that and have the city invest in some of those projects as well. But we're seeing really good things in the city, and we're seeing really good things that we can copy from other areas. So I think it's fundamentally important that we, as a city, provide that housing for our most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Matt?
Yeah, so the question is, what should we do to encourage developers to do the right thing? I mean, over the last, God knows how many decades, our existing city council has given developer free reins to do whatever they want. And that's resulted in these sprawling $2 million homes on the outskirts of city, and nothing for us. Nothing for working people that can actually, that actually work and contribute to the city. We're building exclusively for the rich, apparently. We haven't built any public housing in the city since 1993. That's frankly unacceptable. We have a 10-year waiting list for people that need accessible social housing. It hasn't come. According to Lifespin, we have over 1,000 vacant homes in the City of London. Vacant homes that speculators have bought up and are sitting on that our current council has done nothing to address. There was a vacancy tax proposed. It was 1%, and they said, oh, it won't pay for itself. Okay, so get ambitious, right? What I hear a lot of from other candidates, doesn't matter what ward, is, oh yeah, we can't do anything. We can't be bold. The developers tell us what to do. Why are the developers telling you what to do? You are the city council. I will be your city councilor that will not be obligated to the developers. We need housing in this city, and if we don't have the political will to actually build it, if we keep electing these goons that serve the ultra-rich, that's what we're going to get in this city, is we're going to get an entire generation that's priced out of housing. That's what we have right now. That's what the people in power right now have set up for us. We've been set up to fail. Yes, we need to mandate density and promote infill. We shouldn't be paving over prime farmland for more billionaires from Toronto to move into London. But we also need to pressure the province to end their policy of exclusionary zoning that makes it difficult to redevelop existing properties. It used to be that you could build a line of storefronts and have housing above them. Now, we just have these massive sprawling parking lots with these huge plazas that all they do is they take up space, contribute nothing to housing. We can do better,
Thank you. Sorry,
and I
Matt.
will.
Time's up. Thank you. Okay. And because we have lots and lots of written-in questions or questions that were submitted in advance, we're going to move on to those now. Each candidate has 1 minute to respond to the questions. For this round, we're going to start with Jared, and then we'll go to Colleen, and then we go to Matt, and then Susan. The first question that I have here, and this is from Michael R. Due to homelessness in OEV, what permanent solutions will you put forward at City Hall? Jared?
Okay, 1 minute for these, correct?
1 minute, yes.
Okay, the only permanent solution, as I alluded to earlier, is more affordable housing. That will be affordable housing through the whole city and through market rent units that will be built in forms of housing that we have not been building for decades. So the duplexes, triplexes, low-rises, garden suites, the kind of infill that we have made illegal for so long. But in the short term, we need to get people off the streets, and we need to do that through shelters. I know Colleen here disagrees, but the long-term solutions are long-term and medium-term. I am committed to doing those. We need to build our city up. We need housing, affordability. That's all on my platform. But in the short term, people need beds to sleep on. They can't keep sleeping on sidewalks. And that's really all there is to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen?
It's not that I don't think that we should have shelters for people currently, but the move should be forward to having permanent housing, and that is not permanent housing. And when you speak to people who are homeless, a lot of them avoid those shelters because of fear of violence, because they worry about being in those close proximity with other people. So we need to look at what are they asking for, and that's again why I think the city has a responsibility to its citizens to invest in rent-geared income housing, and housing with supports, because having spent the last 6 years working in housing, we have managed to house people. We are seeing there is a certain percent of the population that needs more, and as a society, I think we need to be delivering on that need. Yeah, I think it's again holding developers to task as well. When we have those affordable units, what is the process to get into those affordable units? Because right now we know that they're being built, but they're not attached to our lists for affordable housing, which is a 10-year wait at this point in time. So I'd like to see that change.
Thank you. Matt?
So can you repeat the question for me? I apologize. Just so I know the full context.
Yep, no problem. Due to homelessness in OEV, what permanent solutions will you put forward at City Hall?
I mean, specifically in regards to homelessness, we need to understand that homelessness is not just a housing issue. Homelessness is a mental health and addiction issue as well. If these people are not set up with the social workers that they need to get to a better place in life, it's going to be difficult for them to maintain permanent housing, right? Now, obviously, but we also need to keep in mind too that like our current, okay, there's too many things to go over all at once. Okay, so right now, what we tend to do in the City of London to address homelessness is we throw police at people, police move them from place to place, they throw them in jail for the night, that does nothing. It doesn't help the people, okay? A lot of the people that are homeless right now were evicted during the pandemic when they were illegally evicted from their units so that people could either sell it to someone buying it to be a speculator, and it's probably sitting vacant right now, or you know, it was for family use, and those people who were on a fixed income and could afford their $300 rented room are now out on the street. Where do they go? Where can you rent for $300 right now? You can't, because everything costs $2,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. So, maybe not that much, because that's a bit excessive.
Okay, sorry,
yes,
your time's up. Thank you. And just as a point for all candidates, if you can maybe slow down when you're speaking just a little bit, because our interpreter has a hard time keeping up.
I'm so sorry. I had a lot to say.
She's doing amazing, but we do want her to be alive at the end of the evening. Susan, your turn.
Okay, homelessness. And especially in Old East Village and in the core areas. I agree with Matt that it's not just about housing, it's about it's a complex issue with many factors. And what I would like to see as a permanent change is for the social agencies to not work so much as silos, that we get some collaboration amongst them, that we get to really look at what is working and what's not working. And no blame, shame, or guilt. You know, the best of intentions can lead to bad outcomes, and right now we have bad outcomes. And so are we willing to let go of what's not working and to hold ourselves as City Council and the organizations accountable to true transformation, not just to manage the situation, but to really support people with a way out of a completely unacceptable situation?
Thank you. Okay, this is really small on my phone. This question, okay, Brandon S., are you here? Okay, because you've sent in about 4 questions in one, so I'm going to narrow it down. What can London's municipal government do to support public education about voluntary actions to address aspects of the climate emergency? And for this, we're going to start with Colleen.
I love this question because London has a climate change plan, and the first 2 aspects of it are to have people drive less and to have people move away from cars. And the only way to do that is to make sure that people can still do the things they need to do. So we need to be investing in public transit so that people can still get to their jobs. We need to be investing in protected bike lanes so that people can still get to their places of work. That also falls into London's Safe Cities for Women plan. We know that women are less likely to choose biking when they aren't provided with protected bike lanes. So I think that's important. It's also looking at our green bin program. It's expanding our recycling programs to our apartment buildings. And I think it's a lot of education. York municipality did a really good educational program. I think that we could mirror. We don't have to do everything by ourselves. We can look to other municipalities and see where they're doing some great things and mirror those. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Oopsie.
And I'm sorry, I probably talked too fast again.
No. Matt? Sorry, Matt, it's your turn.
So in regards to things the city can do to sort of mitigate climate change, I mean, when we're talking specifically about climate change, ecology is a much broader topic than just climate change, but and we do have our obvious solutions in regards to emissions, right? So trying to move away from the combustion engine is obvious, so we need to support electric vehicles where possible, and obviously improve our transit and improve our bike lanes. Those are the obvious things. Those are the easy things that any municipality can look at and say, okay, we can do that. But I'd like to be a little more ambitious than that. I would like to specifically look into greening our supply chain so that when we make our purchasing and tendering decisions, it's from organizations that are greener, that are lower emissions, that are lower waste. These are things that we can do to expand from the obvious solutions into the more systemic things that can make a broader impact on the City of London's role in fighting the climate crisis. We're kind of in a stage of mitigation right now, unfortunately, but hopefully we can learn to be a model for other cities.
Thank you. Susan.
Okay. When it comes to climate change, there's a lot of things that have double benefits. So increasing or improving our public transit, I think, is a huge one that will get more people onto the bus. The 15-minute neighborhoods, when we're building our new developments and housing to get really creative and make it a great place where people can not have to travel very far. Urban agriculture, tree canopy, and food security. I think all of those things we could do a lot better in terms of supporting the climate change and improving life for Londoners as well.
Okay, thank you. Jared.
Thank you for this question. And environmentalism is very important to me and my family. We're a car-free family. We clothe our son in cloth diapers because we can't bear to have the disposable ones go to the landfill. You can draw a line through any single item on my platform, and it's environmentally focused as well as economically focused. I want that economically sustainable city, but it's got to be an environmentally sustainable city as well. That's why I want to be building inwards and upwards. I want to be using mixed-use development so that we can get these 15-minute communities that I'm glad Susan agrees with so much. And we will, as she mentioned, it gets people out of their cars, walking around. It makes it more viable to have public transportation options instead of driving places. It makes it so that people can use bike lanes if we have separated bike lanes, which are absolutely a part of my platform. The ultimate way of reducing climate change from a city perspective is having more environmentally sustainable cities closer together and less car driving throughout the city. And those are all accomplished on my plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Okay, the next order will be, it will go Matt, Susan, Jared, and Colleen. The question is, I'm going to move this over here. And this is a question from Paul S. Outside of your campaign and previous political office, please name 2 things you have accomplished or tried to accomplish in your community work and how each might inform your work as a ward councillor. If you need me to reread the question, let me know.
It's a bit of a long one, if you could reread it, please.
Okay, I will do it again. Outside of your campaign and/or previous political office, please name 2 things you have accomplished or tried to accomplish in your community work and how each might inform your work as a ward councillor.
Sure. So earlier this year, actually, my landlord tried to ban air conditioners in my apartment complex. I brought that fight to the MPP's office, and we basically successfully won. I mean, that's the short version of it, but there are people in my building that have been there for 20 years that had the superintendent install the air conditioner for them even, and all of a sudden the landlord decided, no, you can't have air conditioners anymore. That was it, right? A lot of people don't know their rights, so it was very important to me to let my neighbors know, that they have the ability to, that they're allowed to have the air conditioner, sorry. And we actually took it a step further, and we actually won a case at the Human Rights Tribunal, making it illegal for landlords to even ask that anymore. That happened a few weeks ago. That was maybe about a month and a half ago now. Campaigns are long, man. But yeah, I mean, that's one big contribution that I have made locally. Can't think of a second off the cuff, and there's the red card. Okay.
Thank you. Susan.
I mentioned the leadership development that I did, and my husband and I did it together, and it benefited us so much that we chose to host a seminar here in London in the fall of 2015. So we spent our own money to have that company come and do 2 workshops here, one a 3-hour short workshop, which we had 75 people to, and then a weekend-long seminar that we had 32 people to. So that was a huge give back to the community to share those leadership skills, because we're all leaders, whether we're parents, friends, employees, we all show up as leaders wherever we're at. And the second thing was when my daughter was in kindergarten, they had always asked us to feed the kids healthy food, and they did a fundraiser that was pop and popcorn for a toonie. And to see the little kids in JK and SK with a can of Coke getting yelled at by their mom for taking the Coke, I decided to run for parent council, and I ended up being the president there and the treasurer. So change starts at the bottom.
Thank you. Jared?
Thank you. The first action that I will highlight is through my company, or through not my company, but the company I work with, advocated hard for getting us involved with a nonprofit known as Lola's Bees. They're actually based out of Old East Village, and it's an urban beekeeping project. It's environmentally focused. I found it through the Green Economy London, which our company is a part of. And it's a very rewarding option to get pollinators back in our cities, because that's something that is dying. Thank you. I'm glad we have support for that. A second one would be I was very involved with advocating for better transit options when we were doing the shift development for LRT and BRT and that whole situation. That's what sort of got me politically involved in London politics to begin with. And I'm going to quickly squeeze in one extra one that's not as important, but I do organize community soccer games every Wednesday at Boyle Community Park in our neighborhood. So everyone's welcome. Next week is our last week.
Thank you. And Colleen.
I love this question because I think it's so important to share with you what has been going on and what I've been trying to do. So I was involved with Women in Politics, which was an organization trying to get more women involved. And what I am so proud of is I helped create 30 Days to Vote, which was an initiative that actually saw a raise in voter turnout in 2014. Unfortunately, we saw that go down in 2018. But you all are out here and you're caring about your democracy. But our municipality is where we have more of the decisions affect us on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's a huge thing, is I've tried to get people to become involved in the process. I think the other thing is just community building. Creating concerts in our neighborhoods, connecting musicians and small businesses, and I guess I'll throw in a third too as well. I helped with the advocacy for the separated bike lanes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll do probably 2 more questions from the ones that have been submitted, and then we will go to audience questions, and we are still sticking with the 1 minute. Starting this round, we will start with Susan, then we go with Jared, Colleen, and Matt. And the question is, and it's from Sharon D. You have 1 vote on council. If there is a very important initiative, how will you approach it to ensure that you have the votes you need for the motion to pass on council? Susan?
Yeah, thank you. I love this question because, of course, we only do get 1 vote, so putting forward something isn't enough to get change, especially for things that are wanted by Ward 4. And so one of the things that I learned in the leadership development was something called language for action, and that is finding out what other people want and getting them to agree to what you want, but for their reasons. So if there's something, initiative that I put forward that I want to happen in Ward 4, I get to find out what is it that the other councillors, residents want. What is it that they want? Is it a financial concern? Keeping property taxes down? Does it meet some other need that their residents have? And so that they agree to what it is that I'm looking for, but for their reasons. So if homelessness is it, then it might be property taxes in the Northwest, it might be transit in the South, and so we get to come together on that and enroll them in it, but for their reasons.
Thank you. Jared?
Thank you. My approach to that is, first of all, I'm a very collaborative person. I love to work with other people and with a team. Again, goes back to my time playing sports and liking to play soccer. But I also have professional experience in sales, so persuading people is sort of part of my job. That's what I get paid to do. And lastly, it would be more that my actual plan, it should be an easy sell. We're talking about developing a city in a more economically sustainable fashion, which means that it'll be more affordable, lower property taxes. Who doesn't want that? It'll be reducing traffic because we're getting better transit, getting people out of their cars, using transit, protected cycling lanes, getting people, again, out of their cars, moving around the city, 15-minute cities, more enjoyable places to live, people not using their car, less transit, better businesses, or better small businesses because of the foot traffic. These are all relatively easy sells that somebody who likes to collaborate with people, that knows how to sell an idea, we can be able to accomplish.
Thank you. Colleen?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a good question. It's something that I've had to do most of my life, working in the various areas that I have. I think it is about that, what's in it for me. So when we talk about something for instance, bike lanes. A lot of people will say, well, I'm never going to use that bike lane. But the truth is, it may allow somebody else to not be in traffic in front of you. It might even allow somebody like me to not be in traffic in front of you. And I always say, I quit driving because I'm a nervous driver. You don't want me in front of you. So helping people figure out what works for them. Again, it's that transit may not work for you, but could you send your 16-year-old to a soccer game so that you can take your 5-year-old to a violin lesson? So I think it is that coming to the table, and it's also coming to the table without an ego. So being able to say, my ward, my citizens are what is important. However we get this done, whoever gets the credit, we need to move things forward, and being able to be there as a voice for this ward and not about my own personal ego, I think is very important. And
Thank
I've
you.
had an opportunity.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, our next question in the... Oh, sorry, Matt. Sorry, I wrote the number. I apologize.
Okay, right. I lost my train of thought now. Okay, right, so collaboration on city council, that's the question. So, I'm in a very engineering brain type of guy, okay? The best way to persuade someone is with data and evidence. Almost anything that's going to pass through city council has passed through another city council. It's very clear to find precedent for things that have worked and things that have not worked. Pretty straightforward in terms of that. But in terms of persuasion, and persuasion will be an element because there are a very large number of people in this world that will not accept evidence because it doesn't agree with their opinion, which is unfortunate. I already have nearly a decade of experience working as a sort of councillor. So I've been a member of the NDP's provincial council for almost a decade now. I've been elected to that position consistently because I'm an effective delegate to that council. You know, what you do is you collaborate with people, you communicate, you say, you know, I need this policy to work for this reason. How can we come together on this policy? How can we change prioritization so that, you know, we can advance this in a way that also advances your...
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, lots of that.
Thank you. Okay, this next round, we're going to start with Jared, and then we will go to Colleen, and then Matt, and then Susan. And the question is, and this comes from Kathy M., if elected, what will you do to support business attraction and retention along the Dundas commercial corridor?
Thank you, Kathy. This is very important to me. I actually live in Old East Village, so that is sort of my regular strip. We are a car-free family. We like to get as much shopping done locally as we possibly can, so this is important to me. Part of this will be going down to social supports. We need people off the streets and into places where they can be safe and housed, again, shelters, alternatives to shelters with all the wraparound services, and spread throughout the city so it's not all just clumped together on that strip along Dundas or the core. The second aspect of this, I wish I had more time for this one because this is such a big question, but the second part to this is foot traffic and getting more residential construction in the area above those shops so that you have, again, it goes down to my 15-minute cities where you have people living in the area walking past these businesses all the time. When you're walking past, you even unintentionally, you're window shopping, you're going to pop in, you'll buy something, you'll support the area, and these are small businesses that live in the area and support the local economy. Thank you.
Colleen.
Yeah, I love this question as well. I am a fond supporter of our London businesses. It's where I shop. One of the things that I've already done is I've helped with some of the advocacy for that bike lane. And as we've seen from stats in Toronto, when you have pedestrian and bike lanes and access, more people shop. They saw an increase on Bloor Street when they put in bike lanes of people attending those shops. So I helped get that bike lane put in, and I hope to see that come to fruition. I do think we need to look at recovery and renewal because when COVID happened, a lot of those businesses really struggled. We need to look at how do we support those businesses to come back online and to be successful. But we have amazing businesses in that area, and I think it's going to be really easy to connect people to those places, again, with better transit, with infill projects, bring more people into this community. I'm also car-free, so when we go around, that's how we get to those places as well, and I think that's really important, is supporting having people come.
Thank you. Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, so how to attract and retain business in the Dundas corridor. I mean, one unexpected, well, not unexpected, but one positive of the Dundas corridor is that those businesses are perhaps more affordable to rent than other places in the city. And as a result, we have some really cool places in that Dundas stretch there. Like Artisan Bakeries, we've got the best iced coffee in the friggin' universe, I swear. The Neo Tokyo anime shop is the only thing that we have in this part of the city like it. You have 100 Kellogg, which has, I can't remember the name of it offhand, but there's, LA Mood, that really cool comic book store in the bottom. Like, they have that theme park that's like, you know, I tell people from outside the city about it, and they're like, oh my God, something like this. Anyway, so we can attract people in regards to that, but the bigger issue is the issue that we have with some of the unhoused folks down there, and we need to work closely with the charities that are in that corridor to see how we can better manage that issue. You can't just make the people go away. You have to work with them. You have to find ways to better their lives, and I think that is definitely doable, and I think there is room for further collaboration between charity and private business.
Thank you. Okay, Susan.
Yeah, so this is really what got me to run in the first place, is my heart is really with small businesses. My practice dealt with small business for 10 years, and most of them are warriors. I don't know how they've gotten through the last couple of years. And we really get to come alongside and support them. People don't feel safe going down into the Dundas Street area. That's not good for business. There's a lot of cost involved with vandalism and theft that just isn't, the police aren't able to answer the calls or aren't answering the calls. That's not working, and people don't feel safe. So having the social services doesn't seem to be working well with thriving business districts on Dundas Street, and it's something we're going to get to look at as maybe one of the things that hasn't been working. So I think working with the BIAs and the BIA presidents there, listening to them and really coming alongside. The COAST program, fully funding it, will also really help. But we get to deal with the issue. We get to really deal with the issue that we've got down on Dundas Street. That's how we get business down there.
Thank you. Okay, and because of time, I think we will go to some audience questions now. The way this will work is I will ask you to come up and speak into the microphone to ask your question, and I will, put them in order if it's not directed toward a specific candidate. So, who wants to? Oh my goodness, Mr. Enthusiasm, you come on up. Okay, well I can't get the microphone out.
I'll be quick. Hi, my name's Michael Kay. I'm a longtime Ward 4. I love this neighborhood. It's a fantastic neighborhood. It's getting better all the time. I deeply love this neighborhood. A few years ago, so the question about the McCormick development that's happening, and that's going to be the big development that happens in our ward in the next couple of years, as there's now another proposal from Sierra that's been put forth to change, and I've been designated the representative of the neighbors, so I live in this area, and I've been in the news and all that jazz, so before. So there's considerations, the vote was done, so now there's a new Sierra proposal being put forth. October 5th will be the meeting. I forget where it is, but it's next week, next Wednesday, for this new proposal that kind of rolls back the considerations that were given to the neighbors and the local residential stakeholders and density and all that. So I kind of want to get the candidates' viewpoint of where we go from here. Obviously, we're sorry, I'm a little nervous. The previous council vote we're accepting, and that was okay because there was considerations given to the neighborhood. So I'm just wondering where the candidates feel about this major development, this major infill development that's going to happen in the next few years that you guys are going to have to vote for now.
Okay, thank you. So where did my mic go? There we go. If you can answer that or respond to that question, and we're going to start with Colleen.
Thank you for the question. It is a major development, and it's going to bring some of that desperately needed housing. I do think that we need to find that balance, because if we are asking residents to put in your time and put in your effort and have your say, we need to be honoring that, but we also need to be understanding that the city does need to grow upwards. So using your time effectively is important. I don't know what this new development is. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the plan. You said it was sent out to you guys tonight. I will definitely look into it.
Last week, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, the meeting was sent out last week. Yeah, that information there, you'll be able to look at it.
Yeah, but I think it is important to balance those two things, is the neighborhood and the people that are currently would love to be part of your neighborhood. And it sounds like you're an excellent neighbor. So, I mean, I can see why people would want to be there. So we'll look into that for sure.
Thank you. Matt?
So the McCormick development, obviously, I mean, it's taking a long time. I mean, some good reasons, some bad reasons. I mean, I know a lot of the folks on that street, they consider it a blight. There's people staying in that old factory there on McCormick. It's not the greatest thing. People want it gone. People want a solution right now. To my understanding, there is an ongoing issue with some soil contamination at McCormick because of some of the manufacturing facilities that were there decades ago. Obviously, that's going to tie things up for a little while, right? I'm not sure specifically in what your organization is looking for in terms of density versus like high versus low, whatever the case is. Ideally, I would like to see some higher density development for like affordable homes for working people. But obviously, if that's something that the folks living there absolutely are positively opposed to, then we'll have that discussion, we'll have that dialogue. But I mean, we do need that housing ASAP. But we also need to make sure that land's developed properly, and we also need to make sure that this developer, like many developers before them, don't try and hoodwink us and then put up $2 million homes when we need affordable homes.
Thank you.
So.
Susan?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the changes that are happening, and I agree with Colleen. You know, there is that balance between the input was had, the agreements were made, and now it's being changed, and we're hearing that happen quite often. And so what I'd like to do is look into that and get back to you via email if that works.
Okay, thank you. Jared?
Okay, thank you. I am familiar with this project. I know that it's right on the BRT line. That's sort of the problem, that it is zoned for, or it should be zoned for high density. It is a prime target for that. The issue going forward, and that I'm trying to solve with my plan, is that we have sort of most of the city is zoned for just single family density homes and low density. And then we have a few areas like along the BRT line that's allowing for high density. So we get that sort of spike where we have single family homes right next to high rises. We need to have what is called the missing middle, which is all the types of housing that I went over earlier, sort of the duplexes, low rises, triplexes, garden suites, things like that will allow us to get density without having people having a normal single-family detached neighborhood with a high-rise right next door that's obviously not good for anyone, people in the high-rises or the single-family home. But we need to get that missing middle involved so that we have that gradient instead of the sharp incline.
Thank you. Audience question from this side of the room. You in the blue. And for this one, we're going to start with Matt and then go to Jared. No, sorry, Matt, Susan, Jared, and Colleen.
Okay, so my question is, what are your opinions on federal and provincial parties and their involvement with municipal elections?
Okay, sure. So I'll make it very transparent. I'm a member of the NDP. I am not an NDP councillor, and I will not be an NDP councillor. I'm not beholden to the party. That being said, it is important for municipal councillors to understand federal and provincial politics. I think we have a lot of councillors that don't know how to work with the province and with the country because they have no political experience outside of that. They can get you built bike lanes, but they can't fix exclusionary zoning, right? And that's the impasse that a lot of cities have had for a very long time. I mean, where was I going there? I don't know, I forgot. But no, I mean, ultimately there are no parties in municipal politics. I run on very NDP branding because they're very similar to my ideals. I've worked on NDP campaigns. Why would I try and hide that? I've actually contributed to the community in a very meaningful way, you know? So, yeah, that's how I feel about parties in municipal politics. I mean, you run on your own brand, and that's what I've been doing for the last few months.
Thank you. Susan?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. You know, as Matt says, he and several other candidates around London have been using the NDP branding and having a lot of photo ops on social media with the current MPP, NDP parliamentarians that we have. And then we had 3 federal MPs come out and endorse Josh Morgan for mayor. I've had people express concerns about that. People don't seem to like it. It seems to be something relatively new maybe in London. I think maybe it's a great conversation. I personally don't feel intimidated by it. And I think it's a great conversation to have.
Thank you. Jared?
Thank you. I would say I don't have any issue with endorsements or anything like that. I would say that I don't like the idea of a party directly influencing municipal politics, but I don't think we're actually seeing that here, which is a good thing. I mean, that, as far as I know, that would be directly illegal. In response to Matt, I would say I don't like the idea of a candidate trying to basically mislead or disinform voters. We already know that voter turnout at municipal level is very low. A lot of people do not understand how municipal politics works. That's something we as candidates should be working to combat and educate. And I don't like having to go to a door where Matt has come up previously, and I'll go to the door and they say, oh, sorry, I'm an NDP voter. And I have to tell them, there is no NDP in this election. Matt chose those colors, but that's not an actual party, it's not a thing. And I'm having to inform the person in a way that I would hope Matt and other councillors would also want to be doing themselves. Thank you.
We've got time for another question. Let me sort
Can
of.
I go?
Oh,
Can
this
I go?
young.
Can I also?
Oh, sorry, Colleen. My fault.
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
It's a lot. There's a lot going on, and I would say I do think it's important that people understand the levels of government and what parts of government can and cannot do. I have seen some people express things that they are going to do that I feel are very strongly provincial items, and but we also need to be at those tables. And I think being nonpartisan means that when you go to the table with a forward conservative government, you can come there honestly and have those conversations, and again, find out what's in it for both of us to make London a better city. You can go and meet with the federal government and Peter Fragastakos and other MPs from the area and find what's best for you. I think we have too much divisiveness in politics already. I don't think we need to bring it to the municipal level. And I think I don't think that not being part of a party makes you not understand. I've helped on Liberal campaigns, I've helped on NDP campaigns in the past, so I do have a fulsome understanding of the different parties, and I would say, Matt, you did tweet that we would have 3 levels of NDP government if you were elected.
Thank you. You had your hand up? Yep.
Hi, my name is Anita. So most of municipal taxes comes from property tax, right? Most of revenue. And also the more expensive the property is, the more taxes the city can collect. But if you're gonna focus on building a lot of affordable housing, and I also heard you mention lowering property taxes that are not that high in London to begin with, how are you gonna support all the initiatives you've mentioned? Where are we gonna get the money for it? Thank you.
And the speaking order for this one will be Susan, Jared, Colleen, and then Matt.
Okay, thank you for the question. And it is something that the City Council is going to get to look at, that when we do more infill, we're not getting the development charges that are coming from the outside of the city. There is less tax revenue coming from these, so it definitely is something that'll need to be factored in. And just like I think at City Council, we're going to get to lead by example. Everybody here is going to get to figure things out going forward. And that's what City Council is going to get to do as well. We're going to get to put first things in first. I don't know if you guys remember this Stephen Covey thing where you put first things first. I've got the video on my website. But I really think if we put the big things in first, the rest fill in. And that's going to be key, is focus, priorities, making sure that we're doing what's most important. And the rest, we get to figure it out. You know, we don't get to just pass it down to the taxpayers. I think we get to lead by example.
Thank you. Jared?
So the way property tax is calculated is there's actually just a big pool, that's the city budget, and we divide up the city budget based on the number of houses, and it's weighed according to the property value. So when we're adding more units, we are just actually dividing up that pie slightly smaller. So each individual homeowner will be spending a little bit less money on property tax, assuming the budget stays the same. Obviously, to develop these new properties, you will probably need some more infrastructure. So the budget will go up slightly, but the idea is that we're going to be building up the property tax base faster than the infrastructure will be built up. And the way we do that is by building a more economically sustainable city, by not doing sprawl, by doing more infill, by building up where you can use the same roads, the same pipes, the same hydro lines, without having to have only, instead of 10 houses spread out on one road, you can have 300 people in a high rise, a couple low rises, and a couple smaller houses
Okay.
paying for that same infrastructure.
Thank you. Colleen?
Yeah, I think our taxes, we always need to be looking at our taxes, and we're facing an affordability crisis, and that doesn't just mean people who are unhoused. It means you and I who are looking at how do we make every bit count. So again, when we're building up and not out, we don't have to pay for future infrastructure to those outlining areas. One of the biggest parts of our budget after police services is that infrastructure spending, so making sure we're looking at those things properly. I do think there's the opportunity to look at vacancy taxes too, so we've had it brought up today that there are some buildings that are being left vacant, and so we can have a look at that, especially some of those buildings in the downtown area that have been left that we could be protecting. And so there's some things that we can look at. I do think the budget is always worth looking at. And again, it's that affordability of what is more affordable long-term and short-term. Having people on transit lengthens the life of our roads, having worked in engineering, because our roads actually get slowly destroyed by the cars that are driving on them. So when we take some cars off the road, it allows for some longevity to that road structure.
Thank you, Colleen. Matt, your turn.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a number of ways that we can cover these expenses. I mean, when you're looking at something like affordable housing, that's not going to be solely municipal investment. That has to be to bring in some investments from the province and from Canada as well. So that requires working with all three levels of government. You know, that's something that a councillor needs to understand how to do. But we can also look at things like the vacancy tax that I proposed. That will generate additional income. We also need to look at our existing spending and see where some of that spending is going wrong. London Middlesex Housing was giving $72 million to upgrade the units, but I talked to people in those houses or in those units, and they still have sewage backups. They still have boards serving as windows because their windows haven't been replaced. They still have doors that are freezing over because the contractor that the city hired has cheaped out and put interior apartment doors on exterior doors. Like, I mean, where'd the rest of that money go? You need to start asking those questions because it's gone somewhere.
Thank you.
And I think we can spend that where it should be spent,
Thank you.
not in someone else's wallet. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we'll get to wrapping things up. So the gentleman with his hand up there, and I'm assuming it's a short question, right? Okay. It will be a short question. Thank you.
Inflation has increased the cost of everything. It increased the cost of living for everyone in the city. It also increased the cost of every department and every program that the government has. So any way that you can afford, the only way you can afford to take care of all the things that even exist, forget about spending more money and doing more things, is it's going to cost more. And you can't pass that on to taxpayers because we're already squeezed. Taxes have already increased. We've already paid too much. So how will you balance the budget?
And you have 1 minute to balance the budget, folks. Okay, so we're going to start with Jared, and then Colleen, and then Matt, and then Susan. Jared?
Okay, thank you. This is actually very similar for my answer to the previous question. As you said, budgets are strained. People are struggling. We cannot continue to build a city in a way that costs a lot of money to maintain. We have to build, to go back to my previous phrase, an economically sustainable city, something that is more affordable for people to maintain, getting more people in the tax base so that we are not spending the same level on infrastructure, on maintenance, and we'll have the budget more under control so that we don't have to rely on dramatically increasing taxes. Property taxes will eventually have to go up with inflation, eventually, but we can work on it in the short term to keep things under control, to develop higher density, to maintain the infrastructure in a more affordable way. And it's similar to my answer to the last question. It's all about building a smarter city, not necessarily a larger city. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen?
I think what we can do is, again, look at that budget. So right now, the police services are asking for an increase in their budget. They've asked for this year after year after year, and statistics have gone up year after year after year. What we have seen is when we have the COAST program, which is sending social workers out who are slightly less expensive, but also more adapted to dealing with the issues on the street, we can make those savings there. We can go to our federal government, who has announced that we have housing is a human right, and ask for those funds to come behind what they are putting out. And then again, I think it is just looking at what are our long-term solutions to make sure that we are saving money in the future. I really do strongly believe in the Indigenous idea of looking 7 generations forward. What are we doing for our next generations?
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, so I mean, it's nice to balance a budget, of course. We've had a surplus in the City of London. The last few terms. Come on, brain work. What is going on? Can you repeat the question for me so I can try and regain my focus? Is that a possibility?
It is about balancing the budget because of inflation. What will you either cut
Right.
or what will you do?
So something to be cognizant of is that this cycle of everything getting more expensive while wages stay stagnant is very much by design. It's by design by many of the same politicians that say we need to run a balanced budget. What that actually means is that money is getting skimmed off the top of all of our paychecks and it's going to someone else. So what we really ought to do is correct the imbalance that we have right now and start taxing the rich what they owe society and what they've taken from the rest of us. And I'm not sure why this fella is so intent on giggling. If you don't want to be professional, don't show up to a debate, sir.
Oh,
Okay, bye.
okay, thank you. Susan?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. It's on everyone's mind, I think, and another one of the main reasons why I'm running. Professional accountant for 25 years, this is not going to be the time to just roll the budget forward. It's not going to look the same. We've had COVID, we've had supply issues, we've got inflation, we've got a very uncertain future. We've got supply issues. So it even goes beyond inflation in terms of the price of projects. We've seen it, right? That the price of projects has escalated. How are we going to do it? It's a really great question. And one of the gifts that comes in difficult times, I think, is a chance to really look at things with an open mind. To look at it, to be open to doing things differently. We're going to find the inefficiencies. You know, we see the roads being done and redone. That's not just happening with roads. There's inefficiencies there. And personally, I'm pretty excited to get into this budget and have a look at it and see what can be done. Because we can do it. And like I said, we get to be leaders.
Thank you. Okay. Great questions, everybody. We are now going to go to the closing statements from our candidates, and we will go back to the original order that we started with. So we will start with Colleen, then we will have Matt, then we will have Susan, and then we will have Jared. 1 minute. 1 minute closing.
All right, thank you so much to all of you who showed up tonight. I hope that you were talking to your neighbors and friends and helping them make a decision, because what is fundamentally important is that we take part in our democracy. As Jared mentioned, we had a low voter turnout. The last election was actually 39.46%. The reason I'm here is the reason I've been coming to these events and showing up for our community for the last 20 years. I care about this community. I love this community. I want to work to make it better. I think we can make bold decisions. I think we can envision a city where people want to come and stay and live and contribute. And I want to be part of that process. I also think what I bring to the table is I'm willing to collaborate with anyone who wants to make this city better for us.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, so I mean, the City of London is in a crisis state right now. We are in a housing crisis. The time for status quo and cutesy solutions is over, right? We need bold solutions to bold problems. Right now, nobody is doing those things. We need to be ambitious. We need to start treating the working class like the vital contributors to society that they are, that we are. We're in a housing crisis. Nobody can afford to buy a house. Nobody can afford to rent a place. These are things that seriously need to be addressed. And we can talk about collaboration all day long, but at the end of the day, stuff needs to get done. People need things to be done. There are people who are unhoused right now who need somewhere to be, right? And if we're going to keep doing the same old, we're going to keep getting the same old. So I ask you to consider voting for me on October 24th and get the real change that the city needs and deserves.
Thank you. Susan.
In this election, you are choosing your representative on the board of directors at a $1 million corporation that manages the city we call home. City Council is that board of directors and makes big decisions for London and for its future. I have applied for this position. I believe I am the most qualified. I've been campaigning full-time since June, listening to you. I am able to bring all of my time and energy to the challenges we face and might face over the next 4 years. We are heading into a difficult chapter. We need and deserve quality leadership. I'm offering you that. This work calls to me and is where I believe I can have the most impact and help the most people. I am here to serve. If you are unsure, get to know me, call me, email me, challenge me. Leadership sets the tone. This is the time and place for bold, ethical leaders, and I'm asking for your vote on October 24th.
Thank you. Jared?
Thank you again to Urban League of London for putting this together. I hope my plan to help current Londoners with their issues and my vision to grow London to a world-class city to retain and attract talent resonates with many of you, as it already has with so many. You've heard tonight some of my plans to solve the housing crisis, to solve our strained transportation network, and to help our communities in need. My plan is more than just plugging leaks, however. We can help build a vibrant, prosperous Ward 4 filled with 15-minute communities, walkable communities, and third places for neighbors to meet and gather. But I need your help at the ballot box to make it happen. Please get out and vote. Please get your friends to vote. Please get your neighbors and family to vote. This is hugely important. This is our democracy. If anyone would like something that brought up that I didn't have time to mention today, please reach out to me. Please contact me. My website is fisherforward4.ca. And again, please vote for me on October 24th to move our ward forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we go, I want to thank all the candidates for their time this evening and running for office. That's very important. Thank you to the audience for coming out. This has been really awesome and wonderful to see you. And I want to thank our volunteers from the Urban League this evening. We have Laura, John, Pat, Marianne, and Selma. Woo, thank you. We still have this room for until 9 o'clock, so the candidates will be available for one-on-one conversations, and please ignore us as we pile up some chairs and maybe tidy some other things up. Okay, thank you so much. Have a good evening. Don't forget to vote October 24th. Have a good evening.
call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
It's about sharing and caring. It's about doing and belonging. It's about living life to its fullest. And it's about laughing out loud. We are L'Arche Canada, and we're about witnessing and sharing the gifts of all people. Learn more about us today.
A backyard rink for my family and I, and that's where my sister and I, spend a lot of time. That's where I sort of learned how to play hockey. Today will be a little bit different, a little bit more, special. It's a real hockey game, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Hey guys, we're the Van Frankfurt Twins at TD Place.
Today we're here for the Ottawa 67's first ever outdoor game.
The guys grew up playing on outdoor rinks in their community, so let's see what they have to say about playing on an outdoor rink this size in front of a huge fan base.
What were your thoughts when you heard that the 67s were going to get to play in their first outdoor game?
The timing of the game is really special because after that game, we're going in the long break. So for all the players, all their family are in town.
It's crazy just me being a 17-year-old kid and being from here in my hometown, big opportunities to play out here.
You watch the NHL team everywhere around the league play those games. Suddenly, you're the little boy who has a chance to be part of it.
It's not every day this happens, so a bunch of guys are really excited for this.
We never played hockey growing up, so you're going to have to explain to us the ritual of going to play at an ODR from start to finish. So when you leave the house with your skates over your shoulder to the time you get home when the streetlights are just coming on.
Usually you'll just pop a toque on, grab your gloves, stick, and skates, and you'll just walk over to the rink.
You'd put your boots on, you'd carry your skates. It would be a cold night for sure.
Either find a bench or a snowbank, just try to tie up your skates quick and then put your gloves on so your hands don't get too cold.
No matter who you're with, it's always a good time, whether it's your best friends, your sister like me, or strangers in the park. You never know who you're going to be with, but it's a fun time for as long as you can before your parents say, get home for dinner or you got to school tomorrow or something.
It's just the love for the game that a lot of boys and girls have, and it's what makes good hockey players good, just playing out there for hours. It really develops your skills.
I grew up playing with my brother in outdoor rinks. Every year in the Christmas break, we get a little shinny game with our whole family and friends that come out, and it's in our blood to be competitive, so we keep a little, chippy out there.
For most of the Canadian, it's something we did in the past, play outside. That's how we build. We're Canadian and proud of it.
Considering you grew up playing on the rinks around the community, what does it mean for you now that you get to play in a 67 sweater at TD Place on an outdoor rink, and the night after the Sens got to play on that same rink?
Just a lot of historic moments that have happened, and leading up to this moment, it's pretty cool.
It's pretty special. I've been to a couple Winter Classics, and here I am playing in one myself.
We went to the game yesterday. Pretty nice for our ownership to get us tickets.
I don't think Brian Adams will be coming out for our intermission, but you know what? That was pretty cool to be a part of.
The 67s are very active in the community, and you give back a lot to your fans. So can you tell us what you think this means to them, having an extra special game like this just before Christmas?
A lot of fans messaged us and said they're excited to come watch us play. We really like our fans, and we know what they do for us, so this is going to be a big game for them.
Junior hockey is not just about hockey. It's good for the young men they are to realize the impact, the role model they can be.
In a city like Ottawa, the 67s are a very old tradition, 50 years now, and it's an honor to play for the team. And at the same time, it brings the community together. I know there's going to be a lot of young hockey players here today, and as an older guy in this team, I love to see the little guys come and support us because, I was one of those kids. And now that I can be a mentor or a leader for them, I just want to, show them a good experience.
It's important for us to build great value inside of our organization and to make sure our players are close to the people, and that is a good life lesson. This might be the only chance in their life to play in those games. You never know. So I hope they will enjoy the experience.